No, I think this is going to be my last one. You can go ahead and run this. Yeah, I've called my Uber. Yeah, I got a video lecture to do. Well, this one's going to be talking about strategic focus and competitive advantage. We're going to start off with talking about SWOT analysis and how important it is. And then we're going to really get into competitive advantage and strategic focus. I'm going to try to do the best I can to give examples of companies that have a strong competitive advantage and what that competitive advantage is. And then we're going to understand about how to use that competitive advantage and really some strategies moving forward near the end of the lecture. Well, I hope it's going to be good. Yeah. Here's the thing though. Every time I do one of these lectures, I either get sucked into a black hole or I dissolve into a million pieces. I'm trying to hide from the producers because I don't want anything to happen to me. What? Broken like a pane of glass? You gotta be kidding me. As I said in the introduction, Chapter 4 is all about developing competitive advantage and strategic focus. Now, we talked in the last two chapters, Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, about market planning and strategic planning, and we also talked about marketing insights in Chapter 3. Chapter 4 goes beyond that. It starts talking about strategic focus and strategic development and having a competitive advantage. In the last two chapters, I talked about two tools that I used extensively when I was in practice as a marketing person. And those were the SWOT analysis and as well as the BCG analysis, or the BCG matrix. There are many, many other tools at a marketing person's disposal that they can use, such as the Porter's 5 Forces analysis and other strategic planning tools and other competitive advantage tools. But this chapter really goes deeper into SWOT analysis. Now, the thing about market and strategic advantage is you want to create a market disruption. Now, when I say market disruption, that sounds like it's a bad thing, but it really is not a bad thing. A market disruption, as long as you're sitting on top, is always a good thing. Market disruptions can build strategic advantage and strategic focus. For instance, if you take a look at digital film. Digital film was a market disruption. Kodak didn't see it coming, they ignored it, and now they are a former shell of what they used to be. Walmart also was a market disruption, and now they're sitting on top. Walmart put stores in small towns where otherwise people would have had to drive to malls or anything to do shopping or something like that. And Walmart became the #1 brick and mortar retailer in the world. Amazon created a market disruption by changing the way people are shopping. People are shopping online now more and more. And they were the leader. They created that market disruption. They came out on top also. Take a look at Netflix versus Blockbuster. Netflix created a market disruption by starting to stream movies instead of having to go and get a DVD. All of those are extremely important market disruptions. And again, a market disruption is a great thing as long as you have the competitive advantage once that the dust clears on the market disruption. So you really need to synthesize your information. And the best way to synthesize information is to do a SWOT analysis. And a SWOT analysis should be very, very detailed. And then collaborate within the firm as well as understand, and that goes to marketing insights that we talked about, but also understand the marketing insight in order to create that disruption. So again, the benefits of a SWOT analysis. And SWOT analysis should be used in your case studies. SWOT analysis should be used in your everyday marketing life. They're very simple. They're lower cost to do. Basically, it could be qualitative as well as quantitative. And I'm going to show you how a SWOT analysis can be quantitative in just a little bit. It also can connect structured data that you've gotten. And remember, we talked about marketing insights and structured data that you got from the last chapter. And also
it starts to look at where are your efficiencies within your organization, where are your inefficiencies, and then where's the market going with your opportunities and threats. And then finally, we're going to talk about this in a couple of slides, but it also promotes collaboration with other departments. So let's talk about the modern relevance of SWOT analysis. Right now it's more relevant than ever, especially since we are in a dynamic and changing environment. Everything is changing very, very quickly. In chapter 1, when we were together, I talked about how buyers have all the power now. And in the past, it was always the seller, because you had to go from store to store to store to store in order to purchase something. Well, Amazon changed that with their market disruption. And they put the power in the hands of the buyer, because now with a click of a mouse, you have multiple options. Google was a market disruption and changed the way we searched for things. Google became so popular that we don't look things up on the internet anymore. We Google them. So it's still a viable and relevant mechanism for developing the marketing plan and also developing your strategic advantage and understanding your strategic advantage and also developing your strategic focus. However, it should be done very systematically. It should be done with other resources. And if it's done haphazardly, if you just put one thing down for strength or one thing down for a weakness or something like that, then it's really a waste of valuable time. And the analysis might be irrelevant. So with regards to a SWOT analysis, the more you put into it, the more information you're going to get out. I've always said this to my students. I also used this when I was in the industry, is you really want to concentrate on those strengths and those opportunities. That is a forward look. I want to say that again because that's really important. Strengths and opportunities are a forward look. Weaknesses and threats really is a backwards look. You look at where are your weaknesses, or where have you been weak in the past, and what threats have arisen in the past, and then you can take a look at those threats as a forward analysis also. So how do we make a SWOT analysis productive? Well, first of all, we've got to search extensively for our competition and our competitors. That's really where we want to start, because our competitors are really our threats. So when you look at the SWOT, and a lot of people that get this confused, they look at their weaknesses and they put down competitors as their weaknesses. Competitors are not a weakness. Competitors are a threat. They are your current rivals. They are not only your current rivals, but a good SWOT analysis takes a look at threats and competitors and takes a look at who has the capability, who's not in your market yet, but who has the capability to enter your market. And that's where really Netflix has to take a look at. And Disney has become a powerhouse in streaming services, because although they weren't in Netflix market 3 years ago, they had the capability. They were sitting on the horizon, and all they needed to do was take those capabilities and start their own streaming services. Now, Paramount's got into it and other people, and you'll start seeing things like maybe Sony get into it, because the barrier to entry is very low when it comes to that. So that's another thing. When you look at your current rivals and ones on the horizon, you got to look at, are there barriers to entry when it comes to your particular market space and your particular product space? Look at craft breweries. The barrier to entry is very small and very low, and more craft breweries are coming around. There is a lot of competition. That doesn't necessarily mean, though, it's a threat. A lot of people can use that competition in order to maybe look at what they're doing well, do the same thing well, and then do other things better. So again, we can't be myopic or dismissive against our competition, even if they're not a strong competitor yet. Who knows, they might be acquired by somebody and become a larger competitor in the industry. And I love that last bullet. Even giants can lose vision. Can anybody think about a giant that lost vision? It starts with a co and ends with a deck. Kodak was a giant, 80% of the film business, and they lost vision. They didn't see the digital threat on the horizon. They didn't see the digital rivals on the horizon, and they were dismissive. And again, they're a former shell of what they were at one point in time. Now, I talked about this before also. A SWOT analysis and a competitive or a strategic focus cannot be done only within the marketing department. Because if you look at your strengths might not just be in marketing. Your strengths could be in finance. You could have more money backing you than any else of your competitors. Disney, GE is a huge threat to get into other markets because they have a lot of money. They can either develop a new market or they can acquire. It might be production capabilities. You might be able to produce better and more efficiently, which may give you a strategic advantage in pricing. It could be your accounting. It could be your human resources. You might have the best people out there and the most customer intimate people out there. You might be able to look at new product introduction more quickly. So your engineering team or your development team or something like that. So again, collaboration with other functional areas are really important when you do a SWOT, because that's where you're going to look at both your strengths as well as your internal weaknesses. Remember, strengths and weaknesses are both internal. So you got to examine the issues from the customer's perspective. Remember, everything in marketing, how many times have I said this? Everything in marketing starts with who you're going to do what to. Who is your target market? Who is your current target market? And who's your potential target market? The more you can look at your internal strengths and weaknesses from your competitors' eyes, the better off you're going to be. And you can't be myopic about that. You can't think, well, our customers don't know what they're talking about. If your customers say you don't have as good a quality as you think you do, then you don't. If your customers say your price is too high, now of course customers are always going to say your price is too high, but you really got to look internally and just not dismiss that. So what opinions of quality, what opinions of go to market or market speed, what opinions of customer service, what opinions of distribution? Do you have a strong distribution strategy? Do you have good operational excellence? How important are these to the customer's views? And are they very important? And if they are, and that's one of your weaknesses, that can be one of your strategic focuses. So look for causes, not characteristics. Your cause could be financial, could be intellectual property. It could be legal problems. It could be reputational problems. Look at BP. BP is still struggling from recovering from the spill in the Gulf. It might be informational. You're not getting good information. It could be organizational resources. It could be human resources. It could be anything really within. So if you look for causes and not characteristics, and that's why you have to do it beyond just the marketing. So again, internal strengths and weaknesses, external is opportunities and threats. External, looking forward, is your opportunities. Looking backwards and looking forward is also your threats. So you've got to ask yourself, does this issue exist today? Is it going to be an issue tomorrow? How big is the issue going to be? We're talking about threats now. And the threats could be not only competition, but it could be political, legal, could be environmental. It could be recessional, or it could be something in that nature. I mean, who was going to predict that the pandemic was going to come? So you've got to make sure you look not only internally at your strengths and weaknesses, but also your external at your opportunities and threats, because your external opportunities is going to be where you're going to put your strategic focus. So again, I talked about disruption and a disruptive mindset. I gave you examples of disruption. Disruption is a good thing as long as when the dust clears, you're sitting pretty. Disruption is a bad thing when somebody does it to you. Think about all of those small little mom and pop shops in these little towns. Walmart came in and put a lot of them out of business. Look at the disruption in Blockbuster and Netflix, as I talked about again. But the big one, and the one that hits home for most of us in Rochester, which is a true shame, is the disruption in the digital space, the digital phone space versus the film. So with that being said, we're going to start our second part in our SWOT-driven strategic planning process. So I will be back with part 2.